Hello everybody, how are you doing? This is Mauer Doctor here with another review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Comodo Internet Security Premium, which is a free security product, and the exact product version is 8.0.0, build 4337. This was released, I would say, about a week ago. Now, there are definitely some significant changes with this version of Comodo. I actually have the release notes that Comodo has provided with this version. Just summarizing some of the big points that I noticed. Hardware virtualization support. That's a significant improvement for older computers, as Comodo used to only virtualize software. Now with hardware as well, that should generally mean better performance when running tasks in Comodo's sandbox and virtual desktop and so forth. Hardware virtualization is generally less resource consuming and less prone to errors and bugs than software virtualization is. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. You also have a new user interface theme, flat tile theme. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Another big one is VirusScope has been enabled by default in their default configuration. If you do not already know, there are three main configurations to Comodo Internet Security. First being the main Comodo Internet Security, which is the default configuration. Then you have proactive security and firewall security. VirusScope basically performs behavioral analysis on unknown files and suspicious processes, and it can reverse the changes at a later date, very similar to Webroot's rollback feature. And as we can also see, we are using their default configuration. And just to see that VirusScope is enabled by default, if we go under Defense Plus and we click on VirusScope, we can see that it is enabled by default. And we can also see the product version of VirusScope. I actually have Comodo Internet Security 7 installed on my host machine, so I can just show everybody for a moment. This is my host machine right here. If we go under Defense Plus, VirusScope is categorized under the behavior blocker in version 7. However, as we can clearly see in the latest version, it has its own category, so it's not lumped together with a behavior blocker. And like with the previous version, HIPS is disabled by default, as I guess they figure it would interfere with the activities of the sandbox and VirusScope. If we go under Auto Sandbox, we see different types of files that it'll automatically sandbox. We see that for all unrecognized applications, they will run it virtually. And this goes along with another new feature that will create policy-based rules. So it'll be easier to create a rule set for certain files, like running files from a flash drive compared to downloading them from online. You can set different rules for that. So definitely more customization options. Under file rating, that hasn't changed very much. We can still view cloud lookup, which will analyze unknown files in the cloud. They still have a list of trusted vendors that it will automatically allow on the computer. So you can tell it's a very large list. Like I said, HIPS is disabled by default. I've not tried to see if it is activated in proactive configuration mode. Under the antivirus, real-time scanning is enabled. Scanning optimization is also enabled. Under detection, do not show antivirus alerts. It's set to automatically quarantine the threats. Now, I don't know if I accidentally just unchecked something, so I'm just going to click cancel here. But during the installation, I did not install GeekBuddy and their Chromium-based browser Comodo Dragon. I'm also using Comodo DNS as well as cloud optimization, which were both checked by default. So that's why I allowed them during the installation. With our scans, we can run a rating scan, which will scan commonly infected areas using file reputation. We can run a full and custom scan, as well as our good old quick scan. Right now, let's check out that new theme. Now, it doesn't really pertain that much to security, but Let's just try looking at the flat tile theme. Personally, I have not checked it out yet, so let's relaunch the application here. So it looks kind of like, I'd say, Comodo version 6 a little bit. Kind of doing a version 6 and 7 hybrid here, but with a modern twist to it. And we can also see our antivirus is set to stateful. We have on access, stateful, and disabled. Personally, I use on access because I feel that is the best way to secure the computer if the antivirus is actively scanning files when they are accessed on the computer. But it doesn't really make too big of a difference in this review. We see our firewall alerts. We also have our firewall activity graphic that can be seen every once in a while going over the Comodo icon in the tray. I don't know where it is. I know it was there a couple minutes ago. Doesn't really make too big of a difference. We can also run specific programs or files virtually. We can also run the virtual desktop. Basically, it's just nothing that special. It's just like a sandboxed desktop. Looks a little bit like a Linux Windows XP hybrid, but I don't really feel the need to go into that. And we can also reset the sandbox very easily right through here. And that is what we will do with any unrecognized files that have been quarantined by Comodo before I run all the scans. We can also create a rescue disk through here. We could submit files for analysis from Comodo. We could open up Comodo kill switch to monitor advanced processes. We can open up their task manager, and again we can view advanced settings. This hasn't changed. Program updates are set to be checked every day, and database or definition updates every 6 hours. It is set to write to the local log database. This is a new feature. It can also write to Windows event logs if you wanted it to be placed there as well. And once log files reach over 20 megabytes, it's set to delete it and create a new one. And we also have all these enabled by default. Normally I just uncheck show notification messages, show welcome screen on startup, and that's pretty much it. We can also see we have their desktop widget on the desktop. We can also run a few tasks through here directly. We can run a scan, we can check for updates, we can run the virtual desktop, we can view our quarantine, and we can also get live support, which through their Geek Buddy service. And as you can see, we have a few web browser icons right here. These are the ones that we currently have installed in the computer, but this is how you access a sandbox browser very easily through Comodo. If you have the widget on the desktop, you just simply click on the icon of the browser you wish to use. And as you can see with this green border, we are currently in the sandbox. And once you clear or erase the sandbox, it'll automatically delete the files. I believe there's a way to have it automatically clean the files after you close out of the program. However, I might be confusing that with Sandboxy. But I believe that is about it. If we check on the installer on the desktop, we can see it is about 213 megabytes, so definitely not small. And you also have to download all the definitions once it has been installed on the computer, and that takes a few minutes. So it does not come pre-packaged in the installation with relatively new definitions. But nonetheless, I'm going to check for updates one more time before I begin the test, and I will be right back. Alright, Comodo update has finished. On a side note, when I got Process Explorer up, I noticed Process Explorer's own process has the detection of 1 out of 56 on VirusTotal. So just out of curiosity, I checked out the results on VirusTotal, and we have this anti-AVL using its heuristics as a Trojan. Just shows that false positives can occur on any program. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, but nonetheless, let's begin the review. 12 malicious URLs that I will be putting up against Comodo Internet Security today. and let's begin. All right, Comodo Secure DNS blocked that page. This warning, unsafe website blocked. And as I mentioned when we were going through some of the settings, I have changed my DNS settings to Comodo's as it was suggested during the installation. It says this website's been blocked temporarily because of the following reasons. Malware, so they make it pretty clear right to the point. We could either go back to safety, which is recommended, or we could disregard this warning and continue, which is not recommended. I think most people would either go back or just close out of the browser, so I would consider that website blocked. You know what? Let me disable Malwarebytes web filter on my host machine, and I'll be back in like 10 seconds. Hello, everybody. I'm back. All right, let's run the next link here. Let's run that file. Let's run it. All right, Comodo Sandbox application isolated. It has been run virtually by default. And we can see through this green box the same green highlighting that we saw when we opened up Google Chrome in the sandbox. Run the next link here. All right, Comodo Sandbox cannot be recognized and request unlimited access to your computer. We could run it isolated, which is the default selection. We could run it unlimited, or we could block it. And even Comodo itself classifies this as a situation where it wants it to run the file isolated. So it'll be run with limited access rights. That's what we will do. We can see it has that green highlight box around it. So if all goes well, it should not have any lasting impact on the computer. And we can notice we are not running those processes in memory. I don't see any of them that have been run isolated by Comodo. Let's run this one isolated. You see that one right there in memory. Detection of 8 out of 56 on virus total. However, it should be within Comodo's sandbox. Alright, it appears the DLL file created by the secure toolbar has been run virtually. Another executable from this DL secure. Let's go on to the next link. While the other one is downloading, let's run that. Alright, Comodo, we get this GeekBuddy alert saying Comodo antivirus has detected a malicious file that is or was recently active on your computer. If you click on yes, I want an expert to clean it, that'll get GeekBuddy involved, but we will select do not ask this question again, and no, I will try and clean it myself. Comodo antivirus does block that threat though, so you don't need to go through GeekBuddy to remove it. If we try again, the item is gone. Let's run this. All right, that application has been run isolated in Comodo Sandbox. Run that. All right, that one was run virtually in Comodo Sandbox. Run this. All right, let's run that. Let's run that. And we can see we still are running within Comodo Sandbox. If we try and run that, like I was talking about earlier, we can see our firewall activity animation going on right down here. It's pretty easy to disable that, but just wanted to show everybody that it is in fact there. All right, let's run this one. And then we still have to wait on the earlier link to finish downloading. So this one was actually caught. So I believe this was the earlier download that just finished. It's set at, just labeled as a generic Infector 5. Comodo virus scope detected that threat. We will clean, which is recommended, and we also get a little bit of a different alert, and it says quarantines the file and undoes all the changes done by it. So we will clean that. The antivirus alert just went away and blocked that thread. If we view all downloads here, appears that it's about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty out Comodo Sandbox. If I have to, I'll restart the computer. I'm not sure if that is still a requirement, but I'll probably do it anyway. And then I'll run a quick scan with Comodo, Malwarebytes, and Hitman Pro, and I'll be right back. Hello everybody, I just want to show that I'm going to remove all the unrecognized files detected by Comodo. Just going to remove that just to make it simple when we are running all the scans. And then we're going under Sandbox, we're going to reset the sandbox, we're going to erase all changes. And then once this is done, I'm going to run a quick scan, like I said before, with Comodo, Malwarebytes, and Hitman Pro, and I will be right back. Hello everybody, I'm back. Comodo finished scanning, did not find any threats. Hitman Pro, I know it looks pretty bad, but in truth, it's not really bad at all. This Ask.com and Softonic, they were both already on the system. This dtuser.exe, that is located, if you look at the containment folder, it's VT root. That is where Comodo places its fully virtualized sandbox programs and files. So that is of no threat to the computer. And as you can tell, while I removed all the unrecognized files and emptied the quarantine and emptied the sandbox, I failed to empty the quarantine. I'm going to go check the quarantine in a second, and we'll remove whatever's in the quarantine. So right now, Hitman Pro didn't find anything. And Malwarebytes just found this one registry key. The Softonic might have already been on the system. I doubt it, but it could have been. And if we do check Comodo's quarantine here, we can see we have 2 infected items. I'm going to delete both of these. As a good rule of thumb, I'm going to restart the system, make sure all the infections are removed. And you know what, just for the sake of it, I'm going to remove that one infection that Malwarebytes found while I'm at it. And then once we are done, we'll just quarantine that, and then I'll delete it. And I'm just going to restart the computer, and then we'll move on to the next portion of the test. Hello everybody, I'm back. On the desktop, I have a pack of malware containing exactly 174 malicious files. I'm going to scan these with Comodo Antivirus, and I'll be right back. Hello everybody, I'm back. Comodo has finished scanning. It supposedly has found 137 infections. Again, with the Geek Buddy notification here, we will remove these files. We will select clean for all of these items. We are not given an option to delete. Clean is our next best option here. So I will clean all those items, and once it is done, I'll be right back. Hello everybody, I'm back. On the desktop, there are 37 remaining files. And if anybody has any doubt that any of the files that Comodo that supposedly is found maybe were cleaned but still in the folder, we can simply add the number of threats that Comodo has claimed to find and the number of files remaining in the malware pack, and we get our starting total of 174 pieces of malware. So that should really end all doubt on that, because I know I'd probably be asking that myself. So again, we have 37 pieces of malware left over. So 174 minus 37, I want to say, 37, divided by 174. Texture rate about 78%. And if you want to round it, 79%. So considering these samples are a couple days old, that's pretty good. And if you know me, I really am not huge about detection rate. I am more about how does it handle threats that is not recognized. So that is what we are going to do. We're going to run some of these samples. Got to re-enable protection as it was before. So the antivirus, I put that back on stateful. And I also disabled the auto sandbox, so we'll re-enable that. So as we can see, everything is on except for the hips, which was already disabled. Now let's open up Process Explorer. And let's begin. All right, that application was isolated by Comodo Sandbox. It's been blocked. That one was stopped. It's classified as malware by their cloud scanner. Trojanware Win32. That has been blocked. Keep going here. That one has been blocked. Labeled as Trojanware Win32 again by the cloud. I just ran that one again. Well, Comodo appears to be deleting the files once it detects it. Application was isolated. Malware was stopped. That one was blocked by Comodo Sandbox, labeled as unclassified malware. Comodo blocked that one, labels it as unclassified malware. Strangely, we're not hearing from Comodo this moment. I wonder if something is going on in the background. All right, the antivirus malware was stopped. Blocked. App data local temp. Application isolated. That has been blocked. Classified as unclassified malware. And I think this will be our last sample here. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to empty out Comodo's sandbox, unrecognized files, and quarantine. And I will be right back. And then I'll also do the scans while I'm at it. And once I'm done doing all of that, I will be right back. Just figured I would show everybody what I am doing here. Going to delete this because a lot of these could be the files I was running in the malware pack. And if we reset the sandbox, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a quick scan with Comodo, Malwarebytes, and Hitman Pro, but I'm going to also run a scan with CCleaner first. I know it didn't look like it before I ran the last scan, but I did run a scan with CCleaner. So let me just run that first, and I will be right back. Hello everybody, I'm back. Comodo's quick scan did not find any threats. Hitman Pro, these two items that are on the desktop, I could not remove them because they were running in memory. Found something in app data, something in the malware packs. Just ignore anything that has malware pack in it. Something roaming install. So it just appears to be one main threat there, or couple. And if we check on Malwarebytes, if we ignore the file extensions that malware pack in them, we see a couple app datas here. Looks like 4 or 5 different ones. We have a couple down here, registry value, and it appears we have a malware trace. But before you jump to conclusions, I found these results a little bit suspicious on how poorly Comodo performed, specifically how its auto sandbox should catch threats that it does not already recognize. If you notice during the execution of the zero-day threats, it appears though it was removing and quarantining threats that it already had known were malicious, either through the cloud lookup or were already being classified as malicious. So I went online. I found that there was an issue with the beta. So I found the same issue was present with the beta, or at least it appeared to be a similar issue. So we go under task here, and we go under advanced settings, and under defense plus sandbox auto sandbox. Now I think it has something to do with the rules. And if we look under the target for all applications, there's 2 different targets. If this one, I believe it's this one right here. So basically how I interpret this, if a file was unrecognized from the internet, Comodo would run it virtually, but it would not do so if it was run from any location other than the internet. So I find this to be a little bit suspicious. I mean, I could be wrong on this, but I have a very strong feeling that this any location is interfering with Komodo's detecting items that are running on the system. I believe that if we switch this to local drive, it might catch some more threats, or it might, my guess, it probably would have caught almost all the threats we ran pretty quickly, and we might not have really even gotten any antivirus alerts. It would have already made that decision because the sandbox would have caught the threats. But because I do test products on default settings, I do not plan on retesting this part of the review with the location set to local drive. I'm just trying to come up with a plausible explanation as to why piece of malware were allowed to get past Comodo in this part of the review, because I just find it a little bit suspicious. So overall, I think Comodo performed very well. And also, if you saw the quick scan results from the last scan I ran, it only took 9 seconds. I believe I mentioned this in the last review I did of Comodo Internet Security about how each successive scan will be a little bit quicker, or it should be. Will not scan over a file that's verified to be safe twice, so it'll help reduce the number of files being scanned, thus speeding up the scan. But just talking about the product overall, I think it did very well. However, I am a little bit disappointed with some of Comodo's settings, and if anything else, I think it should be a little bit more clear about what the rules are actually doing, because for the sandbox not to be blocking threads that are coming from the computer, I mean from a CD, from a flash drive, I mean that none of that is good, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. Some of you may know through asking me personally, or perhaps I've mentioned it before in previous reviews, or just happened to see in this review when I went back on my host machine, that I do in fact use Comodo Internet Security. I should note that I do test a lot of different products, as you can tell through the 100 plus videos that I have released. I in no way have a bias towards any one product. If a product is good, you will hear me talk about it. I just happen to know a decent amount about Komodo because I have a lot of experience with it. That's why I talk a lot about it. But I have worked with a lot of different AVs over my many days, and I just keep coming back to Komodo. While it's not perfect, I feel that it's definitely a decent security solution, and it's definitely worth considering if you're interested in free antiviruses. But then again, it's not really about what I think is good. It's really about what suits your particular wants or needs. So even though Komodo might be good for me, I might not be really that eager to suggest it to somebody else if I'm afraid they're going to allow a bunch of unrecognized programs to run on their computer because they get a million alerts, and then they're going to let some piece of malware get on their computer when they think they're downloading a legitimate program. So it really depends on who you are, but for me, I like Komodo. But you always have to keep in mind that security products, they come and go, they change from version to version. Some get better, some get worse, and I might not be using Komodo in 6 months from now. So, I mean, that's kind of how the ball rolls. So, I think that'll be about it for this review. Take from it as you wish, and I will talk to you later. Bye.